Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me leave to respond to the motion presented by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the member for Miku South. Be it resolved that the Honorable House of Assembly do adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Estimates of Expenditure for the financial year 2020-2021 in the sum of $1,697,312,800 as a charge against the Consolidated Fund and other funds of the State of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, this figure represents $105,723,800 increase over the 2019-2020 approved estimates, or in the vicinity of a 6.64% increase over the said period. Mr. Speaker, it also represents a $168,921,520 increase over the projected outturn for the 2019-2020 fiscal period, or an increase of 11.05%, which conveys the distinct impression that despite recessionary pressures, the outlook for 2020-2021 is normal, seemingly business as usual. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Finance, in introducing this motion before this Honorable House, indicated the following: that there will be a widening of the fiscal deficit during the fiscal year 2020-2021. Two, that the impact of COVID-19 was immediate and is like nothing we have seen in this country before. And during the course of the Leader of the Opposition's address, the Prime Minister, on a point of his elucidation, cited a sharp deterioration in revenue intake by the government as a central reason for the proposed cut to the salaries and wages of government workers. So, Mr. Speaker, given that those arguments and statements are of material relevance to the dissection of the anatomy of the 2020-2021 estimates of revenue and expenditure, I beg leave to give careful and sensible treatment to them as I enter into the cauldron of this debate. Mr. Speaker, I have always argued in this House, to the annoyance of the member for Miku South, that given the small, open, and vulnerable economy of ours, we should be prudent in our borrowing and give ourselves space to respond to emergencies, like COVID-19, Mr. Speaker. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, I wish to refer to comments made by me during my response to the motion dealing with the 2019-2020 estimates of revenue and expenditure, where I did indicate, Mr. Speaker, that we will have to confront emergencies from time to time, and that if we continue to borrow, we will be narrowing room for fiscal maneuver. That was the last debate on the estimates. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very concerned about this scenario for three main economic reasons. First, Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that COVID-19 will result in a very large cut in international trade as a result of falling global demand, both for consumption as well as for investments. So sectors such as tourism, construction, and travel will be heavily impacted. This is why governments and central banks all over the world, Mr. Speaker, are trying to push money into the system and cut interest rates, trying to launch expansionary fiscal and monetary interventions to counter the expected recession of COVID-19. But we seem to be doing the direct opposite, Mr. Speaker, by imposing bans on government workers. Second, Mr. Speaker, in this emergency, government policies aimed at a sharp reduction in salaries and wages could plunge our country inadvertently into greater economic and social problems, as these austerity measures can cause a fall in aggregate demand. Mr. Speaker, this sharp reduction in government workers' salary and wages could cause lower growth, recession, and unemployment. And the third major concern that I have, Mr. Speaker, is that a large number of our fellow St. Lucians are being paid as helpers by public officers. A reduction in the salaries and wages of government workers will push those individuals into deeper depths of insecurity and misery, as they will not be able to get resources to buy essential food items and other basic items during this period of uncertainty. In addition, Mr. Speaker, many government workers rent from people, and in many cases, those landlords depend on the money from the rent to buy the essential supplies on a month-to-month basis, far less during this period of doubt and confusion and uncertainty. And Mr. Speaker, emergency assistance to the poorest section of the population and assistance to bail out small businesses that are closed is not forthcoming. Already there are tremendous pressures on the small business sector. With their backs to the wall, there is a serious risk of collapse of our business sector, and those persons will not be able to navigate the turbulence of COVID-19. We are in the realm of possibilities, Mr. Speaker. And to make matters worse, Mr. Speaker, remittances, which play a pivotal role to alleviate poverty in middle-income countries like ours, improve nutritional outcomes, are associated with higher spending on education. Many of the persons in the diaspora, especially in New York and in London, are confronted with COVID-19 and even access to those outlets to send money to their loved ones here that depend on those resources to survive are proving difficult. In fact, the World Bank has projected that remittances to Latin America and the Caribbean in 2020 will fall by 19.3% due to the economic crisis induced by the COVID-19 pandemic and shutdown. Remittances help families, Mr. Speaker, afford food, healthcare, and basic needs. And so this morbid scenario is not good for the economic health of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, a combination of government workers' salaries and wages being cut, many St. Lucians have already lost their jobs, and many more are at risk for losing their jobs with no other means of income. And to compound the situation, like I indicated, the St. Lucian diaspora is experiencing their own challenges, and I sympathize with the loved ones of those who have made their terrestrial demise. Over the years, I've supported the economy of this country from the overseas homes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we do not respond appropriately to this crisis, people are going to suffer in this country. And we are elected in this house to advance the business of the people of this country. This is our fundamental responsibility, not just attacking people on the opposite sides. This is a very serious moment when we should be approaching this thing from our integrated whole. This is no time to split it at its political seam. And during the debate, it was business as usual for them, attacking people for asking honest questions, Mr. Speaker. The economy and the social order it helps support will collapse, Mr. Speaker, if we do not handle this matter properly. If we do not protect the salaries and wages of government workers and guarantee income for the thousands of workers who have and will lose their jobs in this COVID-19 induced recession, which if not handled properly could lead to a deeper recession, a depression, Mr. Speaker. The coronavirus, we are very early in the impact of it, but it's going to cause immense pain and suffering to the people we are elected to serve unless appropriate action is taken. It doesn't lend itself to easy solutions and decisions, but we must grapple with that objective reality together. So, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the fiscal deficit in a recession, one can understand that. And this is why I was talking about useless borrowing in times past for Tioa King and all sorts of foreign leeches that just want to come in and have us to expand expenditure so that they could benefit. Mr. Speaker, government usually borrow in a recession because generally there is a reduction in tax receipts. The private sector may be holding on to their monies and not wanting to invest, and they always find government bonds to be safe instruments to invest in. And because of that situation, government can borrow at a cheaper rate, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of private sector investment and spending, the government needs to fill the gap. The question is, Mr. Speaker, why is the government not borrowing to pay the salaries and wages of its employees? It is not clear to me why this is so. There may be a valid reason. With all the boasting about growth and all the boasting about reduction in the debt to GDP ratio, which of course the member for Beaufort South adequately addressed in his short presentation in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the vitals alone will not give you an overall picture. You may go to St. Joe's Hospital or Tapion or Victoria, and the nurse will take your blood pressure, your temperature, your pulse, and everything could be okay. So if that was the measure about the vitals are okay, the nurse should just tell you go at your home because your vitals are fine. No, the doctor needs to evaluate the patient, look at things in a holistic way, Mr. Speaker, before a determination could be made. And the question is, why is it the government believes that it should resort to this course of action at this particular point in time? I did not know that the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance was trained in hostile takeovers of government workers' salaries and wages. But Mr. Speaker, like the member for Beaufort South indicated, if you are asking public servants to make a sacrifice to take a pay cut, why are you erecting in top positions in the public service with diligent dispatch people that you choose to erect? Why? For example, Mr. Speaker, the 2020-2021 estimates of revenue and expenditure on page 324, head 45, line 1209, consulting services and commissions, reveal that in the fiscal year 2018-2020, we had an amount of $272,333. In the fiscal year 2019-2020, it was $492,718. And the revised estimate was still $492,718. However, Mr. Speaker, for the fiscal year 2020-2021, an amount of $1,083,414 has been estimated. This represents an increase of 297.8% over 2018-2019 and 119.9% over 2019-2020. What is the member for Mico South hiding in this figure of $1,083,414? Mr. Speaker, why at such a time, when the government is asking workers to take a pay cut, it is increasing the number of employees at the Ministry of External Affairs and other ministries? So it's the politics as usual. Things must be at their convenience. So it's no longer convenient after many years to choose a deputy speaker. So it is inconvenient for them to putting people into the public service at this time, when we are in response mode to the novel coronavirus. And we cannot prognosticate with any degree of accuracy how we are going to be impacted in this country by the virus. And some people in here would be casual about it and laugh. But Mr. Speaker, for the fiscal year 2019-2020, 98 positions were approved and 69 positions were funded. For the fiscal year 2020-2021, 99 positions were approved and 72 positions were funded. What is the urgency of increasing the number of employees in the Department of External Affairs? Mr. Speaker, during the presentations of members of this side of the House, they ask a purely legitimate question. Over the past number of years that this government has been in office, what they have utilized the country's money to do? And the member for me could not dismiss it as ludicrous. But it's a valid question, Mr. Speaker. Because if we have monies to spend on foreigners, why is it we have to go and raise funds for PPEs for our frontline workers? And if I heard the Minister for Agriculture properly, when he was speaking in this House, I think he said for agricultural purposes, and if I am quoting you wrongly, sir, please rise on a point of order, that you're going to invest St. Lucia to help you to deal with the business of agriculture. Mr. Speaker, when we have to treat our business as a fundraising venture and take monies through our fiscal framework to just waste it, that is of concern to us. Mr. Speaker, on page 258, head 45, line 801 of the 2020-2021 estimates of revenue and expenditure under contingency current expenditure for the fiscal year 2019-2020 was $10 million. And this amount was revised to $80,887. Where was this money transferred to? And what did they do with it, Mr. Speaker? Maybe the member for Mico North and the Minister for Finance can start by telling us how many millions of taxpayers' dollars were spent on celebrations at the racetrack for T.O. Aking. How many millions were spent in Bacchanal down there from that fund? Maybe the member for Mico North and the member for Mico South could tell us about it. Mr. Speaker, still on page 258, head 44, line 2340, acquisition of sinking fund investment. I notice expenditure of $11,999,999 for the fiscal year 2018-2019. And another $12 million were estimated to have been spent in 2019-2020. Maybe the member for Mico North and the member for Mico South could tell us how many millions of dollars, how many millions of taxpayers' dollars were utilized in relocating Boseju and garbage dump to facilitate Tioaking. Maybe the member for Mikunov could tell us how many laptop computers were purchased from this allocation. Mr. Speaker, even as we battle the COVID-19, millions of taxpayers' dollars are being pumped into activities to benefit Tioaking. For example, on page 580, head 41, Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Natural Resources and Cooperatives, section 47, subsection 9, line 0299, a total of $7,946,751 is estimated total project cost for the relocation of the Boseju Agricultural Station. And $1,696,751 were allocated in this year's estimates. While you claim that there are no monies to give relief to the vulnerable, whilst agriculture itself are trying to identify money elsewhere, we have money spending to accommodate Tioaking. Mr. Speaker, given the amount of times COVID-19 came from the mouth of the Prime Minister, and given that in this crisis, it has brought to the fore the vulnerability of global supply chains, I really thought that the estimates would have indicated a specific direction in coping with the environment towards expansionary measures that would favor domestic production and employment. That is the type of estimates that I wanted to see and expected if we are serious about tackling the problems that confront us. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, I took issue with Boseju being taken for horse racing. We have to take care of our own needs, and I came to the House before COVID-19 and indicated to this House that we need to start preparing our country to boost up domestic production to protect ourselves against a harsh external environment. I even indicated that the world population is prognosticated to grow to 9 billion by 2050, and that there will be a lot of demand for protein, like from meat, from cattle, from chicken, etc. And we should move in that direction. No, but instead we took an abattoir, gave it to Tioaking maybe for horses, put a racetrack there, instead of allowing Tioaking to go and get his own racetrack by Miku, the Vantim lands. Let him go and buy his own lands. And let us utilize the resources of this country for St. Lucians, for the security interests of St. Lucians. And then you ask, why is it the opposition asking the question, what we did with the money over the past 4 years? These are legitimate questions. We came to the House to debate, Mr. Speaker. And for too long, this Tioaking thing has been going on, unabated. We are taking millions of dollars for the convenience of Tioaking to remove a dump and to relocate Boseju. And from the sinking fund, and the Prime Minister indicated that the sinking fund was to pay bonds, to pay loans, and 3 months' salary. If I'm quoting you correctly, you can maintain your position. But if you believe I'm misleading the House, then you can stop me. You indicated that at least 3 months to pay salaries. But the ideal situation is 6 months. I want to understand why the government is crippled at this particular point in time in terms of borrowing for a national emergency that the whole world understand. I want to understand, maybe there's a legitimate reason, but the Minister for Finance must tell me. But when I look at the estimates, There is no sympathy for St. Lucians. It's like business as usual. The airport will go on. The monstrosity at the St. Jude's Yard will go on. And they will listen to nobody. Mr. Speaker, while on page 600, head 52, subhead 45, subsection 2, line 0251, I noted a $3,842,268 allocation for computerization of schools, CXCE testing. I searched pages 600 to 602 in vain, I don't know if I need glasses, to find an allocation for laptops for students as we move to ICT to continue educational instructions on our student population during this COVID-19 pandemic. I looked through the estimates to see if any allocations were made to that effect. I saw nothing. But like I said, in the rest of the estimate, millions of dollars being spent for foreigners to accommodate Tioa King. A road at Larry Shoes. Nothing was wrong with the road. But another road was built because Tioa King wanted another road for $13 million. And now we have to respond to an emergency, and you come to the House and you attack the opposition. As if it's the opposition that forced you to do this foolishness. Mr. Speaker, regarding laptops, while the rich, well-connected and well-resourced communities have laptops, desktops, Kindle, tablets, etc., to handle the educational needs of the children online, they are internet-ready homes. It is the contingent, poor and stigmatized communities that have been disadvantaged. They form a significant percentage of the St. Lucian population who lack that financial cushion. Outside of COVID-19, they lack that financial cushion. Far less now, where the reality has forced itself upon us that we have to go that route because we have to protect ourselves against COVID-19. COVID-19 is an invader, an intruder, an enemy. And we have to unite against COVID-19. And we have to go online. But during the last elections, when they were campaigning, they were saying, "Moon Bakamaji laptop." And today, they are begging everybody to bring laptop. Right? Including used laptops. They would have had a lot of laptops if you had allowed the laptops from Venezuela. Look at how many years you could have gotten computers coming into this country. And you know, the poor nice workers who were dismissed, they don't have the capacity to buy laptop. The many single income.
Mr. Speaker, just on a point of order. I don't like to interrupt my friend's flight, non-stop flight. But again, he's indicated that the nice workers were fired. I want to remind him that the nice workers were not fired. In fact, their contracts came to an end. And I would certainly appreciate if the member from Labrie would certainly keep to the script. Thank you, sir.
Honorable member, I think this point about whether nice workers were fired, we've gone through that.
We have gone through the definition of that before. We have gone through that before.
And the issue has been whether they were fired or terminated or the contract comes to an end. The government side is insisting that the workers were not fired. The contract came to a natural.
That's dismissal. You check the definition of dismissal.
Okay.
Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I believe we have gone through that before. And not because members opposite object to a word that I will automatically withdraw the word. If the word dismiss, it could be when you don't renew a contract. That's part of it. That's part of it.
You may.
Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I am going to proceed with what I came to say in this honorable house. I will not be distracted by your people. Everything is a joke for you all. There is no serious moment.
They are your colleagues, members of the House, not you all people. Continue.
But they are people, eh? Mr. Speaker, but you see the same laptops that were sacrificed by them. The Honorable Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, Dr. Kennedy Anthony, had the foresight, the compassion to equalize opportunity, to destroy privilege by getting laptops to ensure that nobody was disadvantaged that required to proceed to the CXC exams. We were grappling with a fiscal deficit in the economy at the time. We could not give everybody a laptop. But every year, by having thousands of laptops in the system, we would be creating a much improved framework for us to ensure that every child that needed a laptop would have gotten a laptop. And that's the whole idea. And what this government did was to play games with Venezuela and go and join some Lima group. Go and join some Lima group. How many laptops the Lima group has given to you today to deal with COVID-19? Huh? How many COVID-19 testing kits have they sent? But Venezuela, with all the sanctions, have sent thousands of COVID-19 testing kits to send kids to Grenada, to other countries that are badly in need of it. And I can tell you, we don't need, you see the level of irresponsibility. We don't need laptops, and we don't need COVID-19 testing kits, according to the member for Denver South. And you know, that is, and then you'll laugh, and that is the type of compassion that you'll claim to have for the people of this country. Because you'll have laptops, desktops, Kindles, and everything at your homes. You'll and your friends. So you can say we don't need. But those who live in the stigmatized communities, the poor communities, they need it. They need it. You have not gotten one testing kit from your friends in the Lima group. And I'll tell you, injecting yourself with any type of chemical is not the way to deal with COVID-19, you know. You can't take chemical Clorox and inject yourself and cure and destroy COVID-19. You know? You're barbaric, but you all are oppressing Venezuela. And at such a time, when the entire world is supposed to get together.
Honorable member.
I'm on the line.
There's some leeway, but
no, I'm
the oppression of Venezuela is not
of my route. But I'm going to continue my navigation on that route, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on page 608, head 56, section 41, subsection 4, line 0071, St. Jude's Hospital Reconstruction Project. Estimated project total cost of $190,945,946. In this year's budget, there is some $44,764,000 were estimated. Mr. Speaker, on page 39, table 5, central government construction expenditure showed that $18.4 million was spent ostensibly on the St. Jude's reconstruction project. Mr. Speaker, not a cent has been expended to take the St. Jude's reconstruction project to its logical conclusion. Instead, they have spent millions of dollars placing containers at the stadium, and they claim it is St. Jude's reconstruction project. They go to the site and desecrate the yard where they now put in this monstrosity, and they claim that it is the St. Jude's reconstruction project. The last time we came here to debate the borrowing, they say it's phase 2, some phase 2 of something. Where is phase 1? Has phase 1 been completed? And every time it metamorphoses into something else, some ugly creature all of that, Mr. Speaker, to stall the completion of the legitimate works towards completing the St. Joe's Hospital because of some bogus arrangement with some medical institution. Mr. Speaker, we live in a very dangerous world. And we have a number of little medical outfits masquerading as legitimate research institutes. We must exercise an abundance of caution as a country in allowing those questionable medical research outfits entry into our country. Are they coming to test medication and vaccines in St. Lucia? Injecting people with unknown substances, including viruses, in the name of immunization? We must be on maximum alert. We need to know those things. Especially that COVID-19 environment. We cannot just allow anybody to come and conduct research in our country. I have it many times. There's a medical school coming to do research, coming to do this, coming to do that. We have to exercise an abundance of caution. Chaque chaudé quet glofouet. Mr. Speaker, page 47 of the 2019 Economic and Social Review indicates that preliminary estimates indicate that the construction sector declined for a second consecutive year by 0.3% in 2019, following a contraction of 13.2% in 2018. As a result, the contribution of the sector to overall GDP dipped to 3.7% in 2019, from 3.8% a year earlier. It went on to say, on that same page, that this outturn was due to a contraction in construction activity in the private sector, which was partly offset by a boost in public sector construction. So, Mr. Speaker, given the fact that they stalled a number of projects that would have fueled growth and development in the economy, they had to find some nastiness to dump millions of dollars in the name of project, in the name of construction. And that monstrosity, they claim, will be finished in May 2020. I guess they have COVID to blame for not completing it in May 2020. And just the last time, maybe the Prime Minister made a mistake. The last time we were there, and when I spoke about the St. Jude's borrowing, I did indicate that there is a gestation period before it would give birth to the funds that you need. And I alluded to the experience of the former government. We applied for a loan to complete St. Jude's in 2013. It was approved in 2014. And the first half was disbursed in 2015. In 2015. There is a gestation period. The Taiwanese are just approve and just give people money like that. It has to go through a process. It has to go through a process. And so, your 2020, May 2020, just playing games. And even with COVID-19, you all have not seen it fit to abandon the nonsense that you all are doing and go and complete St. Jude's.
Honorable Member, I stopped member from ancillary partners yesterday for the use of the words saying that members are doing nonsense. And I'm going to ask you now to withdraw.
Mr. Speaker,
I'm going to now ask you to withdraw.
my love and respect, anything you're allergic to, I will withdraw. You're allergic to the word, I will withdraw with lightning rapidity. Nonsense, he asked me to withdraw. Of course, he's allergic to it, I will withdraw, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I see on page 608, head 56, section 41, subsection 4, line 0079, Constituency Development Program, the CDP, an amount of 17,684,993 was allocated. I am hoping that my constituency can benefit from this allocation, Mr. Speaker, in doing some roads and some drains in the constituency. Further, Mr. Speaker, on page 600, head 52, section 45, subsection 2, line 0051, an amount of 10 million is estimated to be spent during this fiscal year. And like I indicated last year, Mr. Speaker, that the Auger Combined School, the Bas Laguas Combined School, and the Labrie Boys Primary School they are all in urgent need of repairs. So I'm hoping that at least they can find in their heart some space to do something for the constituency of Labrie in terms of all of those millions. We pay taxes just like everybody else. We contribute to the fuel, to the $1.50 or even more on a gallon of gas for the roads. And so we are not asking for charity. We are just asking for you to spend what we have contributed in my constituency. In addition, Mr. Speaker, on page 604, head 54, Department of Youth Development and Sports, section 65, Sports Services. Estimated total project cost, 32,602,800. But 11,064,600 was allocated for the period 2020-21. Is there an opportunity for lighting of my playing fields and fencing of my playing grounds, completion of some of the projects that we had to do? And I have referred this Honorable House to our manifesto and our priorities in the last manifesto that we had as to what we are going to undertake. Mr. Speaker, I searched pages 585 to 587, head 43, Infrastructure, Ports and Energy, in vain to find any allocation for the Majamel Road and other roads in my constituency. Mr. Speaker, again, my people pay $1.50 on a gallon of gas, and we are entitled for relief. I recall last year, I told you that the Kate Road was the worst road in the world. And I promise from this chamber that if nothing was done, I would have done something on the road. And Mr. Speaker, I gave a 2-week window, and I went on the Kate Road with my equipment, my material, and then I did some work at Kate. That has brought tremendous relief to the people of Kate. When they saw those trucks, those huge trucks and grader and roller, they were shocked. Something that was unknown to the imagination. And we went on the road and we gave relief. And Mr. Speaker, some of the UWP say, no, it's UWP that doing the thing, until the people came out and tell them, listen, because they were involved. I involved the community. And in the same way, I have told the people of Majomel that if this government does not respond, I will bring some relief to them on this road. And this I will do, Mr. Speaker, before the end of this fiscal year. That's right, COVID or no COVID. I also searched pages 594 to 595 in vain for the Labrie market, which was unceremoniously dismissed from the estimates when this UWP administration came into office in 2016. The member for Vieux-Fort South was Prime Minister at the time, placed the amount in the estimates from financed by the Republic of China and Taiwan. You all came in, there were community discussions, everything in the constituency. Ready to go to build a facility. You all just dump it and resume your own navigation after that. And despite the fact, thank you, sir. I have stayed in this house before, and I said, La lin kui kui jubawe. La lin kui kui jubawe. All of those who felt that they had unbridled leave and all the time to do whatever they wanted to do. Nobody anticipated COVID-19. We must do things in a way that would say tomorrow may not necessarily be yours, and expedite the work that needs to be done, like finishing St. Jude's. But no, they have dominion over life and death. And over the past 4 years, kabwit kabay bal, me se mouton ki sou. How many more minutes? Mr. Speaker, last night,
15 minutes, honorable member.
Last night, I listened attentively to the member from Canries, Ancillary Canries, and he was talking about member for Ancillary Canries.
Honorable members, honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, it's only now the member understood anything about small, open, and vulnerable economy. Mr. Speaker, prior to COVID-19, openness, insularity, resilience, weakness, and dependence have always been important factors influencing small state engagement in the international system. Small states are exposed to a high degree of openness, often with a dependence on strategic imports. That's why it's an open economy. It depends a lot on international trade, and is always susceptible to external shocks. This is why, Mr. Speaker, I am always asking the government to pursue approaches that would minimize vulnerability to external shocks, which in turn increases in its prospects for sustained growth. Because economic instability can have a number of negative effects on the overall welfare of people and nations by creating an environment in which economic assets lose value and investment is hindered or stopped. This can lead to unemployment, economic recession, or in extreme cases, a societal collapse. Now we are in a very difficult place, Mr. Speaker, with COVID-19. This is the time people must abandon all pettiness, and get serious about saving our country. In this regard, stability-oriented fiscal policy will enable public expenditure to smooth swings of economic activity and support crisis mitigation when needed, like now in the COVID-19 environment. During and after COVID, Mr. Speaker, a relevant framework for monetary and fiscal institutions and policies must be established to reduce volatility and encourage welfare-enhancing growth. Mr. Speaker, in the aftermath of this COVID-19 pandemic, it is very likely that the frustrations of this period will be brought forward and will be compounded by the dread economic and social realities that await us, which carries the distinct possibility of people getting angry and then will take to the streets if things are not done properly. What we need to do, and at all times I have said that to the government, you need to secure a period of peace. And we're going back to the commencement of the term. When you are busy attacking social partners, you are not creating the conducive environment to provide leadership. When you speak sometimes, people can just disregard what you say and do things that are completely out of order. This is why the opposition called upon the nation to calm down during COVID-19 and cooperate with the government and the CMO to ensure that we move forward as a country, because we have to protect ourselves and our country. But they come there as if they are the ones who work some magic in COVID-19. We all took responsibility for our affairs in our constituencies and in our country. Look at the amount of time that the leader of the opposition addressed the nation on COVID-19 in a responsible way. Despite what you all said, he maintained level flight and did what he had to do. Hence, the needs of the most vulnerable must not remain chronically unattended and dismissed by members opposite. Mr. Speaker, at this moment of crisis, this is the time the role of parliamentarians is even more critical in giving voice to the pains and suffering and concerns of the poor, the marginalized, the dispossessed. The times demand that we speak with a superior voice of truth and justice. Neither can this opposition have a superficial engagement with the spectrum of challenges confronting government workers at this time, Mr. Speaker. I cannot be a coward when St. Lucia needs courage. We must have the courage and fortitude to remain true to the journey. And no matter how many times we are attacked in the process, whether in and out of this house, and I have said before and I'll say again, those who hide behind fake profiles and attack people, malign people, the just God who presides over the destinies of nations, at a certain point in time, will deal with you. The fingers you are typing all your foolishness, you may need to type something good, and because you have squandered your opportunity, you may find yourself in trouble. So I'm asking the nation as a whole, let us use ICT in a productive way, like other Caribbean islands who use it to market manufactured goods in many different services to create an improved framework for us to respond to the challenges of this world. We relate disadvantageously to a world dominated by capital, and we must do everything necessary to ensure that we can reintegrate our islands in the Caribbean in a fast-changing global environment. The opposition is duty-bound to probe those issues responsibly, with vigor, with consistency and great determination, with all the controversies, to emerge better prepared to unite on the survival approaches that must be adopted if we are to successfully navigate the aftermath of this COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Because we cannot rectify our present disorder. We cannot rectify the problems that confront us by playing petty politics. The opposition will not go away. We were elected by the people. And the last elections, we had 37,000 persons. And today, more are looking up to us for honest purpose and for compassion. And we are not going to fail the people of this country, Mr. Speaker. And we are going to come to this house and fulfill our duties. We are here to debate. But when we come there and we stand and we make our contribution, as if we are annoying certain people, and it's politics we play. How you mean it's politics we playing? You gave us a big document, we went through it. For days we go through your document, and we are responding to the document, and you're saying, no, you must not respond to the document. It's almost like the monk that went for training. It was a period of 10 years. And he had 2 opportunities to speak. So they gave him a little room with a little bed. He lay down there midway through the first 5 years. They asked him, he had anything to say. He indicated that the place he's sleeping is a bit tight, if they can just open it up a little bit. That was the only thing he said. Midterm, the other term, they asked him if he had anything to say. He said, the little bed has no mattress, can he get a mattress? At the end of the period of evaluation, they told him he failed because all he did was to complain throughout the 10 years. He had 2 opportunities to speak, but he failed because all he did for 10 years was to complain. Now let me tell you something. We're not accepting that outcome that monk embraced. We were elected by the people of this country
Honorable
to come
you
here,
have 5 minutes in which to complete
to
your
come here,
presentation.
and the member for Babuno can say whatever he wants. And I have said to them before, you see the same God who presided over this country in 2016, that God is alive and well. And you know, I believe in that God, and I trust in his word. And I trust the promise of the God that I serve. And no matter what man would do, it is already written. Belshazzar believed he was powerful, you know, Mr. Speaker. Belshazzar sent for all the vessels in the temple of the Lord with all his concubines and his wives. And whilst they were there in Bacchanal, start to write on the wall. And they went to call Belteshazzar. And Belteshazzar told them, that same night the kingdom fell. He should have learned from his father Nebuchadnezzar. Yes, you'll sometimes behave like Nebuchadnezzar. Go up there and say how great he is. Until God had him to go to the field and grass like a cow. Until he acknowledged God. Then he was rectified. So when we speak with that moral voice in this house, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. That's why no matter what you'll write on Facebook and how you'll attack the opposition, we are not afraid because we are fighting you all with soul force. This is why I can never hate any one of you or go to bed thinking how I'm going to mess up anybody in this house. We are in transit passengers on this planet Earth. We have to give up our energy to our country. We need to reach out deep into the wells of our resources and bring out the talents God gave us for the benefit of mankind. And that's who I am. When I go to bed at night, I think of nothing else but how I'm going to help people who are in need and in distress. And the opposition will remain in the orbit of the problems of this country with absolute alacrity to serve. And so, God, take the wheel in the meantime and let your will be done. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.